was running against Washington. Well, you ask the question, why in the hell did she want to be a senator and go to Washington? And they spent enormous amounts of money there in Iowa to get this woman elected. Same way out in Kansas. Orman was ahead of the ball game. They propped up old man Roberts. He finally got enough votes together. Of course, Kansas has been voting Republican forever. So he ends up winning by about 16 points when it was all over. When the dust settled and all that settled. But you got to remember, Orman out there was independent. He did not have a party organization behind him. He was a multi-millionaire. He spent some money on some ads. But I mean, it's just insane, the whole election there, and they running around talking about a mandate. But the Republicans going to have. Now what's happened is President Obama has moved forward. The last question we have, last topic I should say, is immigration. What do you think about this? He's administratively done some things, which basically what it says is this: if you've been here for 5 years, you have to go down and register and acknowledge that you are undocumented, and then you have to get your various papers together to prove you've been in the country for 5 years. They run criminal background checks on you, etc., and then you get into a program, and you pay your taxes, etc., and at the end of the program, not sure how many years you got to stay in that one, they'll get you through the normal process. So that's basically what he's come up with for this, and he will not deport you in the meantime if you go through the process, unless you're a criminal in a gang, then you're gone.
Well, when I think about it is that, this is just a natural outgrowth of the way the election process has been going, in my opinion. And so I'm going to have to leave Boston Red. Things are getting a little tacky.
Well, we've been here about 30 minutes. So you think on immigration, that's one of those situations the Republicans, they already claim they're not going to do anything. Incidentally, this year, they're out on Turkey Day, and they'll be back for a few days in December. Then they'll go out for Santa Claus and come back next year when they take over the place. But it's down to the situation now. They work Tuesday through Thursday, if they work at all. But they are officially there Tuesday through Thursday, and that's it. So this entire year, they had 8 days to work, 8 days for the Congress to work. That's it.
Yes, I know.
They go home. So
I think it's dismal. But I mean, what I was saying is it seems to be the way things are going, and
it is. You're right. It is dismal, and that's why people low turnouts.
Down to minorities that they can control.
Well, yes, and one other final question, Jerry. I know you got to go. What do you think about 216? Sabato had a deal on that. We covered it. They had people there talking about, well, what would happen in 216, what wouldn't happen in 216. It's up in the air. Does Hillary Clinton run? Does Hillary Clinton not run? Does somebody else run who she chooses? And the Republicans, it's all up in the air. I mean, they got twiddly-dee, twiddly-dum, and twiddly-nothing. I mean, it's down to Two-Ton Christie, Jeb Bush, but he's got to rehabilitate himself. I mean, you go down a long checklist of these characters, and it's supposedly about 26 of them have said they may or may not run. It depends on how much money they come up with. But that's the Republican side of the coin. So in other words, at this point, 216 looks a bit dismal too.
Well, I think actually it's good for the nation to have where nobody's in the front running position.
Well, it is. Well, on the Republican side, but the Hillary side, she's out. Of course, she's better known than the rest of the people would be out there. And let's just face it, Jim Webb, I think he exploring it. He's the same age as Hillary. He's 67 years old. And then on the left, you got Senator Sanders. Senator Sanders is in his 70s. He wouldn't make it anyway, but he could raise up a little bit of noise. And then you got O'Malley out of Maryland. Nobody knows him right now. And from his record there, probably a lot of people wouldn't want to know him. But I mean, they've got better candidates, like the fellow out of Montana, if he decides to run. But right now, the ones they have thrown out there is not much. It just depends if she comes out there, if her health holds up, and gets out there. But the Republicans, you haven't seen nothing yet as far as the money. I mean, they're going to put the money out there, but they've thrown everything at her over the years but the kitchen sink. I mean, literally, everybody knows everything about the Clintons. So the whole deal is that's not going to work as well. And I think, fortunately for us, Jerry, this immigration thing will go one way or the other. In many of these issues, Obamacare, who knows, the court may knock some of it down. Those are the Republicans' issues that they had in 2014 are not going to be there in 2016. Ebola, they're containing it. So there's this whole thing, and there'll be no President Obama, only can say, well, this is an extension of him. He'll be going packing up his bag. So the whole thing is, it'll be a different year. Anyway, Jerry, nice talking to you. Appreciate this. This will air on your network tomorrow.
Well, and as far as your luck there with the cancer, basically, you and I both had cancer, and I beat it, and you're going to beat it, and somebody's trying to knock us off, you think?
Well, it came to my mind.
Okay.
It's not something, that, a lot of people would say, well, you're paranoid. But, you were talking about various other people, all of them being sick, etc., and smiling faces of some doctors. I'll tell you offline about that, but you just kind of wonder about the situation. You wonder about it. But as one would say, one thing I have already determined is that there's some roads I'm not going down. And the unfortunate situation with your situation was that they got the cancer, but all these other things have kept you, as they say, there.
Oh, I'm in worse shape than ever at this point.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, Jerry, nice talking to you. I'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later, Washington.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks for having me on.
Yep, thank you.
It was no more. And so, she took a ring from her finger and placed it in his hands. There was a wit in a man, neither young nor old, but a wit full of an old man's wisdom and a child's wisdom. And then, in a moment, it was no more. And so she took a ring from her finger and placed it in his hands. There was a man, marked with the scars of his love of country, a body active with the surge of a life far from spent. And in a moment, it was no more. And so, she took a ring from her finger and placed it in his hand. There was a father with a little boy and a little girl, and the joy of each in the other hand. In a moment, it was no more. And so, she took a ring from her finger and placed it in his hands. There was a husband who asked much and gave much, and out of the giving and the asking wove with a woman what could not be broken in life, and in a moment it was no more. So she took a ring from her finger and placed it in his hands, kissed him, and closed the lid of the coffin. That adds shock to our sadness more than the assassination of our leader. Chosen as he is to embody the ideals of our people, the faith we have in our institutions, and our belief in the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. Such misfortunes have befallen the nation on other occasions, but never more shockingly. We are saddened. We are stunned. We are perplexed. He's poorer because of his loss. But we can all be better Americans because John Fitzgerald Kennedy has passed our way. Because he has been our chosen leader at a time in history when his character, his vision, and his quiet courage have enabled him to chart a course for us, a safe course for us, through the shoals of treacherous seas that encompass the world. And now that he is relieved of the almost superhuman burden we imposed on him, may he rest in peace.
Gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This afternoon, following a series of threats and defiant statements, the presence of Alabama National Guardsmen was required on the University of Alabama to carry out the final and unequivocal order of the United States District Court of the Northern District of Alabama. That order called for the admission of two clearly qualified young Alabama residents who happened to have been born Negro. That they were admitted peacefully on the campus is due in good measure to the conduct of the students of the University of Alabama who met their responsibilities in a constructive way. I hope that every American, regardless of where he lives, will stop and examine his conscience about this and other related incidents. This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. Today we are committed to a worldwide struggle to promote and protect the rights of all who wish to be free. And when Americans are sent to Vietnam or West Berlin, we do not ask for whites only. It ought to be possible, therefore, for American students of any color to attend any public institution they select without having to be backed up by troops. It ought to be possible for American consumers of any color to receive equal service in places of public accommodation, such as hotels and restaurants and theaters and retail stores, without being forced to resort to demonstrations in the street. And it ought to be possible for American citizens of any color to register and to vote in a free election without interference or fear of reprisal. It ought to be possible, in short, for every American to enjoy the privileges of being American without regard to his race or his color. In short, every American ought to have the right to be treated as he would wish to be treated, as one would wish his children to be treated. But this is not the case. We are confronted primarily with a moral issue. It is as old as the Scriptures and is as clear as the American Constitution. The heart of the question is whether all Americans are to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities, whether we are going to treat our fellow Americans as we want to be treated. If an American, because his skin is dark, cannot eat lunch in a restaurant open to the public, if he cannot send his children to the best public school available, if he cannot vote for the public officials who represent him, if, in short, he cannot enjoy the full and free life which all of us want, then who among us would be content to have the color of his skin changed and stand in his place? Who among us would then be content with the counsels of patience and delay? 100 years of delay have passed since President Lincoln freed the slaves, yet their heirs, their grandsons, are not fully free. They are not yet freed from the bonds of injustice. They are not yet freed from social and economic oppression. And this nation, for all its hopes and all its boasts, will not be fully free until all its citizens are free. This is one country. It has become one country because all of us and all the people who came here had an equal chance to develop